Alright, what is up, guys? So, my name is Ryan Worth. I've been active on the DCI subreddit a lot. Basically, I write and arrange like DCI shows just for fun, not really trying to make any money out of it or get any fame. It's just something fun that I like to do. And I previously published a DCI show using several band/orchestra pieces, and a lot of people were wondering how I do it, especially since I use FL Studio and not anything like Sibelius or MusicScore or anything like that. So today's quick tutorial is basically teaching you guys how I do my DCI music on here. A lot of it, in my opinion, is very like, you can like mess around with it a lot, and like you have to be flexible because not everything is going to sound exact, considering it is a music software and not actual instruments. And then a lot of it is trial and error, so I basically find what sounds the closest to an actual drum corps. So first I'm going to teach you about the instruments and what I do for that. So basically, to make up the brass line, I have these 6 brass instruments. We have a trumpet sound. Doesn't really sound realistic. A brass sound. Again, doesn't sound realistic. Brass ensemble. That's the closest to DCI, but still doesn't sound realistic. Then another one. Trombones, which sounds the least realistic in my opinion. And then another trumpet section. So now you might be noticing that not all of these have parts, like this one, and then this one, but what I do is I do a layer of all 5 of these. So if you click show children here, you can do that, and if you don't know how to add a layer, just go into here, go down to layer, and then it'll bring you up with this, and then you click set children after you select all of these, and then what it does is it uses all of these. So, now this is after I've EQ'd it. So let me show you what it sounds like before I've EQ'd all of these instruments. So let me just turn these off real quick. Okay, so now if we go back into here, that's before EQ. It's also before EQ. Oh wait, let me turn off the master EQs as well. So it's all really dry. So I use the same EQ for every one of them. So what I do is I load up Fruity Parametric EQ2. This is a free plugin. All of this stuff is completely free, so this is stuff that you could do with FL Studio. Now granted, FL Studio itself isn't free, but all of these sounds that I use are free. The brass sounds come from a pack called an Ultimate Sound Pack. I'll put that in the description. And then the rest are just free plugins. So if you look at the EQ, it's the same for all of the brass instruments. Basically, I just drag the higher frequencies up. So if I were, let's go into this one. So this one's the most realistic sounding DCI without anything going on. So that is this channel right here. So if we reset this, so that's what it sounds like to begin with. That's what it'll sound like as soon as you load it in. But if we load up bring up the higher frequencies, it's already sounding a little more brassy. And the stereotypical DCI trumpet is like really brassy, very bright sound. So now add in a little bit of reverb. Basically when you add it in, it'll just be down here, the wet slider, just add it all the way up. There you go. Actually, don't do it all the way up, just keep it even with the dry. So then what I do is, an easy way to copy and paste that to all of them is, let me turn these on real quick. Alright, so now you might not want to go into all of these and do the same thing over and over again. So what I do is I set it up for the first one and then come to File, Save Mixer Track State As, but don't click on it, just click and drag it to the next one. Alright, and then it'll just keep doing that for your 6 brass instruments, and then it'll copy and paste whatever mixer settings that you have over here. So then, let me turn on Master EQ. Master EQ is just the same thing, so we up the reverb a little bit more. That gives it a more like big like stadium feeling, because DCI isn't going to be in a soundproof room, so there's going to be a lot of reverb. And then I also increase this just a tad, not too much, because then it'll never, the notes will never die down, but just a little bit. And then we go back into the EQ, and what we have here is I lowered this like second frequency just a little bit. This will help cut back on some of the lower notes like tuba and mellophones and all that. And then I also upped the this frequency as well, just a tad. This will help bring out the more like not like the soprano notes, but like the alto, if you're thinking of it that way. And then something else you can do is also up this frequency as well. That'll make it a lot more brassier, so if you want a really punchy sound, you can do that. Or if you lower it, it'll make it less brassier, so like say you're having a ballad that you don't want it to be too loud, you can do that. So, we go back into our instrument parts, and now we gotta do the mellophones, because that's basically the trumpets and trombones that we've talked about. So mellophones is also a sound from the pack that I have called Florestan French Horns. So then if we go into here, it basically has the same presets, so we up the wet and the reverb. And then this one is a little bit different, so let me go ahead and reset this real quick just to show you guys. So this is what it starts off with. I drag this slider down until 6 and 7 are right on top of each other. And then I drag 7 up like 3/4 of the way. So if we go back into this and play it, like it sounds decent, but then if we up 7, it gives you that nice like blatty mellophone thing. And granted, we are playing with a French horn sound, so it'll sound a little bit different, but I haven't found a good mellophone sample pack to use yet, so I'm just using French horns, which works perfectly fine. And then I also have the same thing on 2 of these, just to up the sound a little bit, so without the second one, it sounds like this. So like it's okay, it's like getting up there, but if you don't, like if you raise it too high, it'll sound weird. So then if we do that again, it gives you a more like brighter sound. Alright, so you guys voted, and I gave you a decision between Santa Clara Vanguard's 2009 closer, which was Ballet for Martha. You might know it as the Simple Gifts part, or Carolina Crown's 2011 opener of Rockstar, which is Bohemian Rhapsody. And you guys picked Bohemian Rhapsody.
Drum majors Preston Chink and Andre Mathis, is your corps ready? Performing their 2011 program, Rockstar. Drum Corps International is proud to present Carolina Crown.
So I went ahead and wrote out some parts for that. Now the problem is I don't have a MIDI keyboard, so I'm literally just using my mouse to like drag and drop and everything, which is a big pain. So this is the majority of the brass parts that we have. I also used a transcription that I had from a long time ago that I made of this brass section, so I was able to reference those notes and rhythms for that, which was extremely helpful because I basically just put it on my second monitor and just used that. So if we play this, so let's solo this, and then we need all of these. This is what we have. Volume warning for you headphone users. So there's that. And basically what I have down here is the velocity control. So the higher notes need less of a velocity because they'll be like punchier, they'll be able to break through the rest of the sounds easier. And then there's other parts like these couple of notes down here have a lower velocity, as you can tell, because that is meant for the mellophone parts. So you don't want the brass to come through that too much. And then same for the 16th notes here. Those are a lower velocity down here because that's also a French horn part, but I doubled it on the brass just to give it more punch. So I'm sure you guys already know how to like write notes in that on FL Studio, so I won't really go through that. But then we add in the French horn part. Actually, let's just solo that real quick, and then we'll go through that, and then we'll show you how that sounds. So like it's okay. It doesn't sound like the typical the mellophone part that was in the actual show. So what I did was I took my Boston brass, and if you go into the mixer, let's figure out which one this is. So it's this one here. I also upped the EQ a little bit more than usual, and like that still sounds like brass, but then when you put it together with the French horn part, so it gives it a little bit more depth, and yeah, that still sounds like either a trombone or a really low trumpet, but when you put it all together, it actually makes it sound a lot more like the mellophone that was given in the actual show. So then, when we put it all together, this is what we get. Let's take out the cymbals for now. So that's pretty good for free samples and going off of what I hear in the music, and also using a music software that's not really intended for DCI music at all. So then let's add in the cymbals. This is a Cashmere orchestra pack. It's another free pack that I love. If we go into here, where's it at? Here we go, orchestra Soundfont. So we have all sorts of cymbal crashes. Then we have suspended cymbals of different speeds. We have bass drum hits. And then there's all sorts of like orchestra stuff that you can use that would basically apply to the front ensemble. And then I haven't done the drumline yet, but what I have there is I basically have free samples. I'll link those in the description as well, of various drumline sounds. So we have your bass drums, then you have rims, unison, cymbal crashes, choke crash, and then you have your snares. Now the only thing that sucks about this is that each one is its own individual sound, so you'd have to load them all in, write all the notes for each individual sound. And then I have even more, so like these are ones. So it's just a bunch of different sounds there. And the way I was asked about my drumline experience with my last DCI show, because apparently it was really good, but I honestly have no idea what I'm doing with the drumline. Like, I'm just doing what sounds good. I'll link my last DCI show in the description as well, but basically there were some parts where I took drumline licks from actual like actual DCI shows. The first drumline lick that is in my show is actually a lick from Vanguard's 2009 closer. So if you are well versed with your DCI music, you'll be able to recognize stuff. And by itself, the drumline sounds really derpy. I can show you guys an example of my last DCI show, like breaking it down section by section. But when it's put with the rest of the brass and like front ensemble stuff. All right, so we are back with my fifth DCI show. Sorry. So for those of you that haven't listened, I decided to take music from Disney's Soarin' ride, which is the one where you basically like fly over California, and arrange that for drum corps, which actually was really successful. I was kind of surprised. Then I took the middle section of Aurora Awakens, which is one of my favorite band pieces that I played. Also, you guys are wondering what instrument I play. I play clarinet, which has like its own downfalls, especially writing for brass, because I love writing for brass. That's my favorite like genre to write for. So I don't really have any experience playing a brass instrument. So I'm basically going off of what sounds good and like kind of like gauging like range wise if my friends would be able to play it on their brass instruments. So then moving on here, for my kind of ballad section, I chose to go with one of my favorite songs called The Call by Regina Spektor. If you've seen, I think it's Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian, it was in the end of that. And then the last section is Russian Christmas music, which is a piece that we're currently playing in band. And I had heard of it before. I played it in band, but like as we played the closer of Russian Christmas music in band, I was like, yeah, this needs to be DCI in my own style, because I know Vanguard has played it, I know other corps have played it, but I wanted to make it in my own drum corps style. Alright, so let's take a look at some of the stuff that we have in the beginning. So it starts with front ensemble, which is also part of the Ultimate Soundfont pack. Basically, the Ultimate Soundfont pack, which will be in the description, is my go-to sound font. Like it has so much stuff from brass, didgeridoo, and like percussion instruments and all that. So if we go into the front ensemble sound, it'll start like this. So my inspiration for this was kind of like Phantom's procession to the cathedral, or Elsa's procession to the cathedral. Alright, so that's the intro to it. If you listen to the drumline, let's mute the brass real quick. I'll show you how it sounds by itself, because it sounds kind of derpy by itself, but as you heard with the brass, it sounded okay. And then this lick right here is the lick that I said that's from Vanguard's 2009 show. I'll show you guys that right now. Alright, so then coming back, so we'll play that again. And this is the thing that I don't like about Drumline, is that, yeah, it sounds extremely derpy by itself, and all of the green sections are the Drumline. So if we go into this rack, like this is what it looks like. So if we go into the highest bass drum, this is what it looks like. So these are all just the same notes there. And then if we go into, like, say, one of the snares, there's not many there because they're all their own individual sounds. So that's the only downfall of writing for Drumline like this. So then if we move on a little bit, I'll show you the ending of this section. Alright, so with these chords here, one big thing about drum corps is power chords. Whether it's open fifths, minor chords, major chords, they are really used to emphasize the end of something, or even the beginning of a piece, like as like a really shocking hit. So if we go into the brass part here, let me load that up, and then we look at the last chord. That's what this is. Oh, my bad. Let's go all the way down here. Here we go. And then we also have this dissonance here, resolving to that. That's another thing about, like, a stereotypical thing about drum corps is a lot of suspensions, whether suspended fourths resolve down to fifths, sharp fours resolve to 5 or 3, and then so on. So basically that's what I did here. And then you also probably heard that mellophone rip. That's another fun thing about drum corps is that I feel like the mellophones get the best parts. So for that, I basically just shortened down these notes a lot to make it sound like grace notes, and then I upped the velocity on all these just to make it stand out a little bit. So if we listen to that again. So there's that, and then for the drum line, if we take out the brass, that's what this will sound like. So again, by itself it sounds derpy, but with the brass it sounds pretty good for free music software, or not software, but like sounds. And then also, automation-wise, what I did was I lowered the tempo here, to give sort of like a ritornado, and then I also had a bass drop here just to give it more like that technical, like modern drum corps feeling. So then as we go into Russian Christmas music, what I wanted for this section was to have like a thrilling closer and kind of just have it be in your face the entire time. So if we go into the front ensemble parts, for this, you can already see that it's kind of wild. But a lot of the parts are doubling each other. So let's go into this. Let me get rid of the drum line real quick. So the nice thing is about this music is that I could, since I am playing this in band currently, I can hear the mallet parts and kind of like make my own parts from there. Because one aspect of arranging is there's a difference between arranging music and just transcribing music. I do both, but for the DCI music that I have, I obviously arrange it. So that's where I add my own style into it. A lot of the parts are like especially fitted to fit like the whole DCI style where it's like really in your face punchy, and then the mallets parts are changed as well to fit that DCI style. So then as we go into the brass, what we have here, let me get that loaded up. So you have your trumpet and like your trumpet line playing the melody, and then you have also like your tubas, trombones, and euphoniums playing a divided bass line. So that basically plays throughout the whole song. And then also one thing that I did forget to mention was that French horns do have a decent tuba sound. So let's add in a low note. Like that sounds like a decent tuba, or if we even go lower. So that's also one thing to keep in mind. So then when we add it all back together, so that's that. And then the closer I have is another example of your basic like suspension and release. So if we go into there, so we have your sharp 4 going down to your 3rd, so it adds a little bit more crunch to your chords. And then one thing that most or a lot of chords are steering towards is playing ridiculously high notes. So that's why I have this whole section here with like a whole like rip up to that. And then also in the French horn part, I don't have a rip here, but there, I do have like your typical like adding in after the chord's already played, because I don't really know how to describe that, but a lot of chords do that where like half the chord plays for the chord and then the other half comes in like halfway through the chord to make it a lot like punchier in general. And then I do have a gong sound that I downloaded from the Orchestra Soundfonts pack that I'll have linked. And then I also do a ritardando here for the ending drum line. And then I also up the reverb. Let's see, so in the master reverb, you have the decay level here. And basically for your song you want that to be like somewhat low, but I upped it a lot for the last note, so it would have that like typical like you're in a stadium last note, it just rings forever. So like it just keeps going. So yeah, that's pretty much my thought process for writing out a DCI show. Obviously it's not perfect, it's made with music software that like all my sounds are free, so like I don't have the money to go out and get like actual samples, so considering it is something that's not really used with this software like DCI music, like most people just write it with Sibelius or other music notation softwares, but I'm trying to make it sound as realistic as possible. And granted, again, it is free sounds, like I feel like I've gotten really close to like the typical like drum chorus sound. So yeah, that's pretty much my thought process for my shows. And then I also want to show you a fun little project I've been working on. I also put this in the subreddit, but what I had was I watched the recent Star Wars trailer, the last trailer for that movie, but I heard the music and I was like instantly shook because it was my favorite chord ensemble. I'll show you what that is in a bit, but it was also like, it was really like, it sounded like it was written for DCI and they just didn't know it. So I'm gonna show you guys my DCI transcription of that just for fun. Alright, we are back. So I will play you the trailer music that I heard right here.
One last look, sir, at my friends.
Confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. Your destiny. The Force will be with you.
Always.
Alright, so now this is my version of it. So I also added in choir, which can be like a synthesizer for DCI. And I have all of my automation. And if you listen closely, again, how I was talking about the band 7 level, this is kind of where the core would be facing backfields, they'd be turning around, and then they have their big hit. So hope you guys enjoy this. Alright, so that was my Star Wars interpretation of DCI, or DCI interpretation of Star Wars, excuse me. And I'm sure you could recognize other DCI themes. This whole section was borrowed, I like to say, from the Vanguard 2019 closer. Also, something I do is that I'm not intending on making money off of this. Like, this is something that I do for fun. It's something I enjoy. It's like a good stress reliever for me. So that's why I say I borrowed it, because like I'm not selling this. So like if I use like licks from other cores, or like the stereotypical like drumline stuff that I used in the last show, I won't get in trouble for that, because I'm not intending on making money off of this. So if you listen to this section, it sounds a lot like the Vanguard closer. And then also just keep in mind that the drum line's not entirely finished. So like this whole section only has bass drum. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Hopefully it helped you. I'll make sure to link all of these sample packs in my description, and I will see you guys next time for my next DCI show.